Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Heather Stamper here, and long time no see. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Kwanzaa, and Happy Yule, whatever you celebrate or don't celebrate. Happy all the way through. Uh, Today is a very special book talk day because it's Jolabokflod Day. Yes, yes. Last year I did a video, Jolabokflod, and did my big dump of reviews for the end of the year. Why Jolabokflod? Well, because of the Icelandic tradition that on Christmas Eve everybody gets a book and chocolate, and they go and read all night, and then they get up in the morning and meet everybody in the town square and talk about their books. Chocolate, books, yes, all the way. Any excuse, why not? So I'm going to be doing that. But before I go any further, if you like my videos, please click like, subscribe, dingling the notification bell. I am good at saying it at the end, but I always forget at the beginning. So mental note right there. All right. So this video is going to be kind of long, so I'm going to try and keep it as snappy as possible. All right. So I'm going in order from least best to best. I read Under the Tuscan Sun by Frances Myers for the Popsugar Reading Challenge for a book with a recipe in it. That's about all I can say for it. I gave it 2 bookmarks because it had good descriptions of, Italy and of the food and things like that, but not much of a plot. I mean, it's pretty much bougie first world problems. Oh, we got to fix up the house that we just bought on a whim because I always wanted to have a summer place in Italy. Hashtag not relatable. But the descriptions were good, but that's about all I can say for it. So 2 bookmarks for that. Moving on. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. This was for my One Book One School, and I gave it 3 bookmarks. Parts of this book did not age very well. There's not much of a plot either. Charlie is more of the background character in his own story because it's, everything's happening around him and with like little anecdotes of Roald Dahl's revenge on bratty children. My students enjoyed it, but I was just like, man, this is not what I remembered as a child. So there you go. And continuing. This one was on the Banned and Challenged books, and it is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume. It was on the Banned and Challenged list because it discussed adolescence and puberty and all those things that girls aren't supposed to talk about. Whole story is Margaret moves to a new town where she makes friends with a couple of girls, and they form their own little club to talk about girly things like periods and shaving their legs and things like that, and boys. And there's also talk about religion because Margaret really doesn't subscribe to any particular religion, but she feels she has her own personal communication with God through her little conversations. So you got religious problems, you've got puberty. Oh my gosh. 3 bookmarks. Another 3 bookmark one was We All Fall Down by Robert Cormier. And again, this is on the Banned and Challenge list. Violence. And there's plenty of it. There's a lot going on with this book. A bunch of guys, high school guys, decide to trash a house, when one young family member gets home when they weren't supposed to be home, and she gets assaulted and basically gets pushed down the stairs into the basement. She's in a coma. She's the only victim, physical victim in the crime. The house was pretty much wrecked. The story is told through a couple of different narrators. One is one of the boys who, is trying to atone for his part in the chaos. The victim's sister is trying to come to terms with what happened. And there is this other witness, just simply known as the Avenger. I'm not going to say much more about that because I don't want to accidentally give away any spoilers, but the Avenger. When they say violence, they're not kidding. This would have been hard R, in my opinion, but it was still a good read. Next book I read, Revolution by Jennifer Donnelly. It is 3 bookmarks. It's not so much that this one had a ban or challenge thing. It was on my list because of time travel and historical elements, and I'm kind of a sucker for that. So there's that. So Andy has a lot of issues. She's angry at her father for leaving, stressed as she watches her mother spiraling into a breakdown, and she's coping or not coping with her brother dying in a very tragic way. She self-medicates with drugs and alcohol, sex, unalive ideation. When she's on the verge of being expelled from her bougie private school, her father takes her to Paris while her mom receives her therapy. And while in Paris, she discovers a journal of a young girl during the French Revolution who was a companion to the Dauphin before, his parents got their heads cut off. And so there is some parallelism going on there. I thought generally it was pretty good. There's like one part where they try to tie things together with a little magic realism. That's like, I don't think you really needed that. The journals itself and just the story of the main character just coming to terms with some really bad stuff in a more healthy way. I mean, that's the story. You don't need the magic realism of time travel or anything like that. It wasn't necessary. So I gave it 3 bookmarks. Then I read The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. This one was put in as on the Popsugar challenge as a recommendation for being on the ACE spectrum. Now, ACEs stands for a couple of different things: adverse childhood experiences, any childhood traumas, things like that, which, okay. There's ACEs as in the asexual spectrum community, which is pretty much what I felt they were going for. And ACEs was also the Asperger's autism spectrum group. So pick one, because it has a lot of things. So this character's name is Stella Lane, and she's a successful mathematician specializing in consumer algorithms, who also happens to be on the autism spectrum. She lives in her little compartmentalized, nice little apartment, and she has her own little homogenous box life where, everything is set in an orderly pattern. But mom really wants grandkids, dadgummit, and Stella struggles with the emotional connections, let alone any romantic connections. She dates, but she doesn't. She has her own opinion about things like French kissing. She compared it to like a little pilot fish eating the baleen off of a whale. Yeah. So she decides to treat the whole thing like an assignment and to get an A on, and hires an escort for a month. Let the shenanigans ensue. It's Pretty Woman meets rom-com meets spicy, and I'm not sure if it actually would qualify as for the aces that they wanted, but it was on the list, so there you go. 3 bookmarks because we all knew where this was going. All right, next book I read was All American Boys by Jason Reynolds. This was on the Banned and Challenge list for racial issues, and some that probably hit too close to home for the people who decided to ban it or challenge it. It's a story about Rashad, who is an ROTC art student, and he went to a local convenience store just to get a bag of chips. When he bends down to get his cell phone out of his bag, a white lady accidentally trips over him. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." But the convenience store owner thinks that the kid's trying to rob him, calls the cops. The cops think that the kid is assaulting the woman. It's a pretty nasty beatdown, and then of course it was recorded because we can do that. And the attack was witnessed by another kid that goes to his school, doesn't know him very well, but he knows of him. But his problem is that the cop that is doing the beating is someone that he looked up to as a father figure for most of his life. So there's a lot to unpack there. So we've got one kid who's recovering from the abuse and just having his bones heal, and being asked questions like, "What did you do to instigate this?" He did nothing. And another kid deals with the controversy in his community and his own internal struggle. Is like, how do I deal with this person who now is on leave, pending investigation, and things that he never had to think about before, and how does he come to terms with that? So it was a very good book, and I really like the fact that it doesn't end with a nice, neat package ending. So if you're a fan of those type of endings, this probably isn't the book for you. But it's realistic. It's like there's hope, but there's also there's still stuff there. So 4 bookmarks there. Next book was Children of Doom by Frank Herbert. This was one that my husband and I were doing as a read aloud. We've been trading back and forth. Part of the whole Dune saga, starting with Dune and Dune Messiah. Now we have Children of Dune. So the kids of the Kwisatz Haderach are not all right. They are not. 9-year-old twins, Ganima and Leto II, have the same pre-born abilities that their Aunt Alia has, if you remember from that far back, or have seen the movies. Alia basically was born, their aunt was born with all of the memories and knowledge of the Bene Gesserit community. Every Reverend Mother was poured into her head. Every relative. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, if that wasn't enough to make you go crazy, I don't know what is. But Paul Atreides' kids also have that same ability because Paul is the Kwisatz Haderach, the one who can fold space and bend into space-time and all that wonderfulness. So Alia, however, we have a problem. Alia has been ruling in the stead of these 2 kids because they're 9. She becomes possessed by one of her ancestors, her grandfather, Baron Harkonnen. Remember him? Big, fat, floaty guy that, was responsible for killing Paul and Alia's dad. Yeah. Good times. Meanwhile, House Carino, the old emperor Shaddam the Fourth, is taking over. And all the work that Paul had done has become more like a warped religion. And speaking of religion, there's some guy known as the preacher who is, it's kind of sus because Paul went into the desert blind 9 years ago prior in Dune Messiah. Preachers also blind, and spouting truth, about what Paul really wanted. Gee, I don't know who this could possibly be. The twins separate for the sake of their own health, and the Leto II has prophetic visions that will transform himself, literally, and the known universe for over 3,000 years. So the saga continues. Boy, 4 bookmarks for that one. That was a very world engrossing bedtime book for the two of us. Next, I read The Watsons Go to Birmingham, Christopher Paul Curtis. This again on the banned and challenged list because of racial issues discussed in the book. So 10-year-old Kenny and his family, the Weird Watsons, decide to take a trip from Michigan to Birmingham in the summer of 1963, where their grandmother lives, at a time when the racial tensions are at their highest. And if you know your history, Birmingham, Alabama, 1963, you had the whole civil rights movement going on there. And that was also the time where the church, primarily African American church, got blown up by Klansmen, and 3 little girls died inside. So there's that for you. And it's a very good read. And it's like aside from the heaviness of what's there, there's a lot of humor and just what goes through the mind of a 10-year-old when and it's like your brother is the cool kid in school. His sister is sweet and innocent and a pain in the butt, because that's what little sisters do. And just the shenanigans that they get into. If you've ever seen the movie Crooklyn, the Spike Lee movie, it kind of reminded me of that. Dealt with real issues, but also had a lot of humor to go with it. 4 bookmarks. Then I read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Story is Nora's life is full of regrets. So when her life is endangered after attempting to unalive herself, she comes to a library where every book is a different version of her reality, where one of her regrets was changed. If she made a different decision, like if maybe she didn't put the cat out for the night, maybe the cat wouldn't have died. If she had said yes to her current ex-boyfriend and got married to him, would her life have been better? If she had stayed with the band that her brother was in, would life have been better? If she had decided to pursue a career as a glaciologist, would her life have been better than what it currently was? Should she have pursued her career as an Olympic swimmer? How would that have gone? And Nora needs to decide which life would be the most fulfilling before it's too late, before she hits that point of no return. So I really enjoyed it. 4 bookmarks. Can kind of think of it as a update on It's a Wonderful Life. Not so much the gee, what would happen if I never was born? But gee, if I had made one change, how would that have affected my life? Another book I read was Stamped for Kids. I read the original book, Stamped, from the beginning, Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. Earlier in the year. This is the pared down version, the adapted version for kids by Sonia Cherry Paul. So it takes bite-sized portions of the American history and racism and it, put into terms that it doesn't like dumb it down for kids, but it makes it a little easier to guide into discussions. And I think for middle school and high school students, this is good. My second graders might not be ready for that yet, but that's okay. We have our own things to worry about in second grade. But yes, obviously, of course, this would be on the banned and challenge list because, oh no, having discussions and conversations that could potentially make ourselves better people and more understanding of the world around us. How dare we? Shocking. In case you couldn't tell how I felt about that. All right, next book was Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Now, I've read this years ago, And I am a fan of the channel Overly Sarcastic Productions. If you've not seen any of their videos and you like history and lore type things, oh my gosh, you totally have to check it out. They are amazing. The one content creator in that group, Red, they're all referred to by colors, did a reading of Bram Stoker's Dracula, the whole novel in 4 sittings for a charity event for hurricane relief in Puerto Rico. This was a couple months back, obviously. Now, if you've seen Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula, the book is pretty much the same thing. It's the same, that they didn't take much and change it. It was pretty spot on to the majority of the book. So didn't leave too much to the imagination. What made me listen to it was the charity event and just how funny Red made it. And it's like her little comments is like, oh my gosh, that does not age well. Sorry, folks. It's like, and just going to little baby rants, before continuing with the novel. So I thought that was awesome. So again, Overly Sarcastic Productions, check them out. Got red, got blue, got indigo, got cyan. They're all pretty amazing people. All right, 4 bookmarks. Moving on. Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. This book is so much of the things, all of the things. Again, band challenge, whatever. Narrator's journey from of fighting for a scholarship. I mean, literally fist fighting other African-American scholarship candidates at a country club to be honored by getting a scholarship. How ick is that? And, going from that to becoming like a trophy member of a communist rally, going down and out and then back up and down and back again. And just how the narrator is just like, I'm really just invisible here. It's like, there's me and then there's this thing that they want me to be, that they make of me. It's in a parallel universe that reflects our own with harsh racial ideology and surreal humor. So again, banned and challenged for, you guessed it, racial things and language, but it was pretty good. 4 bookmarks. Now, I only have 2 in the 5 bookmark category because they were just that compelling. So the first one, which is on the ban and challenge list for language and fear and situations, is Unwind by Neil Shusterman. This is part of a series. This is only the first book. In the future, the Second Civil War, instead of fighting over slavery and states' rights, this war was fought over reproductive rights. So the resolution or compromise, depending on how you look at this, was life isn't viable from the moment of conception to the age of 13. No abortion. Between the ages of 13 and 18, though, parents can choose to have their child unwound, a process where it's live organ donation occurs. So technically life doesn't end, but the entity that was your child has ceased to be. You can see how this would be, dystopian plus. So the 3 main characters, there's Connor, who is a difficult teen whose parents, just had it with his shenanigans and signed him up to be unwound. Parents of the years, folks. There's Risa, who's a ward of the state, who was selected to be unwound because, one, space and expense cuts, and she's a good pianist, but she's not talented enough to be considered gifted. So neat into the unwound program. Yay. And then there's Lev. God bless him. He's a tithe. One who was conceived and raised to be unwound like it's a religious experience. Yeah, there's a lot to go through there. They go through a series of events that in order to have a chance to escape this process. I props to the author for some of the most compelling chapters ever, especially there's one where you basically go through the process through the eyes of one of the characters until he loses his eyes, and then it's his consciousness. I'm not going to go in there, but it's like, it was just mind-blowing. So 5 bookmarks for that one. The other book that I read that was 5 bookmarks was one that I just finished, called The City of Thieves by David Benioff. It's on the banned and challenge list for vulgarity. That's what they choose to have a problem with. And I said, you'll see what I mean in a minute. So this is the buddy road trip book you didn't know you needed. So this is Leningrad during World War II. The Germans are in the middle of the siege. And so Len Benioff gets arrested during the siege by the Soviets because he looted a German corpse that, the trooper landed and had died. And so he just was going through his pockets for whatever. But because things were so scarce that anybody caught looting or being out after curfew, which he was both, you could potentially be sentenced to death. Yeah, these were the times they lived in, folks. So he gets put into the prison, and while awaiting his sentence, he meets this fellow prisoner named Kolya. He's a young, smooth-talking professor who was arrested for desertion, also punishable by death. So the two are given a chance for freedom if they can get a dozen eggs for the colonel's daughter's wedding cake. So it's a tough task considering that Leningrad is on the brink of starvation. There aren't chickens, let alone eggs. And so we have to go through behind enemy lines in order to get the eggs, and how he goes about it. So obviously there's some biographical things going on here, but the war settings and things like that, the deprivations, that doesn't bother the people who decided to ban it. It was the vulgarity, because Kolya is really good at smooth talking the ladies, and Lev doesn't know anything about that. So it's one of the running jokes throughout the thing is it's like how to sweet talk the ladies as they're on their little adventure here. Really good read, though. It was a surprise for me for the end of the year. City of Thieves, 5 bookmarks. If you haven't read it, go read it. And if you can't read it, audiobook it, because it is amazing. It is a great book. All right. So that is my Jolabokflod spiel. All of the books I haven't been able to do a review on because it's been a very draining year. So end of the year for me so far. I'm just saying. But I'm going to keep at it with the videos. Again, if you like these videos, please click like, subscribe, dingling the notification bell. Merry Christmas and all of the holidays that go with it. And I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.